like the clappers again to make sure that I can cover all of the topics you see here in good detail and give you some really good practical tips to take away that you can, start implementing from tomorrow onwards. If you're new to the seminar, welcome. And if you do want to catch up on any of the previous seminars that we've covered in the last couple of weeks, Stephen has sent out links for them, I know, but he might pop it into the chat box here again. So if you do want to go back over those topics or catch up, but it might be a nice thing to have to go back over if you do want to remind yourself of what we cover, because I do tend to cover a huge amount in the 60 minutes. So like always, I'll be covering off for about 50 minutes, and then I'll go on to any questions you have. So as we're going through the seminar, guys, if you have any questions, stick them in the chat box, and then I'll get to them. I'll come back to them at the end of it, okay? I mightn't stop in the middle just to answer questions, but I will circle back at the end and go through anything that's asked. So for those who maybe haven't met me before, my name's Laura Kealy, founder of Bridge Nutrition, and I'm a health and performance nutritionist. So topics for this week, guys, we're moving on. Last week we covered all about micronutrients, and we looked at healthy eating on a budget, which, if anybody was there, saw how passionate I am about eating for cheap and not spending a bomb of money on foods that you don't really need to. We want to focus on simple, cheap, healthy, whole foods. So this week we're moving on a little bit more, and we're going to look at nutrition around different areas of health. All right. So we're going to look at a bit about nutrition for aging. So what happens when we age? We're going to look at muscle wastage, which is called sarcopenia. That's a really big one, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about because I don't think we get told enough about it, even as young adults. So if you've never heard of it before, you're going to learn all about it tonight. And if you have heard about it, you're going to, I suppose, know how to kind of counteract it as best you can. We're going to look at protein and resistance exercise, because that's directly related to halting the muscle wastage as we age. We're going to look around eating around exercise. So a few little tips to kind of get the most out of your workouts and to build some muscle as well. And then we're going to move on to eating around positive mental health and what to eat for a healthy gut, which is two very important areas as well around our nutrition. So let's jump right in. Looking at, common changes as we age. All right. So, aging is inevitable. It happens to us all if we're lucky enough. And there are things that happen to our body that we if it's happening right now, to be aware of, and if it's coming, to be aware of it as well, because different things. I suppose again, this isn't an area that we get really educated in, even though it happens to everybody. So there's different areas in our energy levels. Energy levels tend to go down a little bit, so we end up being a little bit more sedentary than we were in our younger years. We have a little bit of cognitive decline, reducing our immune systems as well. Our bones actually get a little bit smaller and they get weakened. We actually get a little bit, we go smaller as we age as well. Our hormones change, our metabolism changes a little bit as well, and then our mobility. So there is, I suppose nearly every area of our body is affected to some degree when we age. But what we really have to look at, because like I said, aging is inevitable, we have to look at what areas can I help improve? What's in my control? What areas of my lifestyle will actually help with the aging process? And remember, we have something called our lifespan, which is obviously how long we're going to live, guys. Okay. But there's also something called our health span. And that's how well we live. So you could live to 110. But if you're not, if you haven't got your body and your mind, it's kind of a reduced quality of life, we'll call it. So what we're always aiming to do is be as healthy, but physically and mentally, for as long as we can. All right, that's the goal. And good nutrition and good lifestyle habits are your best tools to improve your lifespan. And it's never too late to try. It's never too late to change. It's, a lot of people will think that, well, what's the point in changing now? I'm in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's never too late to get healthier. All right. And you can see changes with these positive influencers in your life. You can see changes. You'll see energy level changes. You might be more mobile. You could be happier. So it's never too late to change. It's never too late to build new and more healthy habits. Okay. So again, it's a reminder that what we eat and drink, it fuels our body for health and movement. It's going to repair and refuel your body. All right. So that repair word is a really, really important one, actually helping our body repair itself. Now, we talked about antioxidants last week. We talked about anti-inflammatories last week. they're all things that help you age well. All right. So this is where I want you to start kind of tying everything in together in your head. So I've been like a parrot for the last 2 weeks. You listen to 120 minutes and we talk about fruit and veg and how important it is, because when we have a high intake of whole foods, fruit and veg, whole grains, nuts and seeds, healthy fats, things like this, it basically helps our body. It helps combat the aging process, the degeneration of cells in our body. What we eat and drink ultimately will determine how healthy we are inside and out. And I would have touched on that in week 1 with you guys. When we look at food, we have to look at it. Food has a compound effect and it has a cumulative effect. So, what you eat on one particular day, it's not going to really make a difference, healthy or unhealthy. But what you do every single day, day after day, week after week, year after year, will determine how well you age. All right. And, in older age, good nutrition is more important than ever, because it'll determine, like I said, how well we actually go through the aging process. So having a good attitude about that is part and parcel as well, guys. Control, and some things won't. All right. And where we can get caught up is that we kind of focus on the things that we can't control, and then we lose sight completely of the things that we can. So when we look at how well we age, it's simply the aging is the result of interaction of our age and other things. Okay, so it's really lifestyle factors. How well do we eat? How much exercise do we get? Do we smoke? Do we drink? Do we get enough sleep? Do we get enough water day to day? Is our environment very stressful? Are we constantly, exposed to many different stressors? Like that all affects how well we age. And these are things we can control. All right, because we can control our nutrition and our lifestyle habits. You are in control of what you eat. You are in control of what you do day to day. You're in control of your mindset in life, your outlook, the company you keep. And that's called an adjustable environment, meaning that it can change for the positive or the negative, depending on what is done within it. All right, so that's your controlled environment. Now we have another thing here called our fixed environment, stuff that we can't control. We can't control our genetics. All right, so you can't control if you're tall or short. You can't control if you've got sprinter's mentality, or you're good at sport. You can't control what your upbringing was. So maybe when you were brought up, you never taught how to cook. Okay, maybe when you were brought up, you were brought up thinking that a certain food is healthy when it's not. Maybe when you were brought up, you started smoking at a young age, you started drinking at a young age. Maybe in your past choices, you've made very poor lifestyle choices in the past. So you can't control any of that. That's something you can't change. It was a fixed environment. But the issue is getting really caught up on this area here is to the detriment of your health, okay? Because there's nothing really you can do about that anymore. So the advice here would be to let go of that fixed environment, let go of the things you can't control and focus on the things that you can. So make it kind of a conscious effort to say, well, look, I can't really, change what's happened to this date, but I can change what happens from tomorrow onwards if I want to, have a more positive, make more positive choices around my health. So that's really kind of the best way to start bringing in healthy habits and healthy changes. And understanding what happens within our bodies, like we touched on at the start there. Just a couple of big things to highlight and discuss a little bit more would be, we have to accept that we do burn we do burn a little less calories at rest than previous years. Okay, that's just, it's not a major difference. It's in around 100, we burn about 100 calories less per day. All right, so it's nothing major or something that's going to be very dramatic day to day. But the issue is that when we get a little bit older as well, we tend to move a little bit less. Maybe the kids are reared, you're not running around after them anymore. You don't have to play taxi during the week where you're in and out of the car like a yo-yo, you're up and down the road, you're in and out of the car putting in gear bags or school bags or whatever it is. Maybe you're just moving a little bit less than you would have 10 years ago. So burning your basal metabolic rate maybe reduces slightly, so you burn fewer calories at rest. Maybe you're doing less movement then. but you're still eating the same. So over a number of months and years, that will end up resulting in weight gain. And then we see this middle-age spread. And some people, you know, they can put on a little bit of weight, maybe through their late 40s, 50s, 60s. And suddenly they don't understand, you know, how am I after putting on this 2 stone? I'm definitely, you know, a stone heavier than I was 10 years ago. And they seem surprised because it's just suddenly they look in the mirror and see it. And it feels to them that maybe it happened over nearly overnight, you know, over maybe a week or 6 months. It probably hasn't. It probably happened over a number of years, just with that slight calorie shift. And it's only when it gets to a certain extent then it's then noticeable to the person. So it's just being aware of why that happens. The risk of sarcopenia, and I did mention this at the start. So sarcopenia is muscle wastage as we age, but I'm going to discuss that in detail in a second. We do have a reduced requirement for sleep as well. Our bones reduce in size. So like I mentioned there, we get a little bit smaller as we age. So they, you know, they shrink in size, they shrink in density. And what happens with this, folks, is that actually weakens them, and that makes it more susceptible to fractures. So you've often heard of fractures in elderly people, you know, a hip or a shoulder or a knee. Well, it's very important not to brush these off as mild injuries, because they can be quite devastating. And there's research out there that shows that there's a high percentage of hip fractures that actually end up with death after 2 years. So I don't mean to scare anybody, but it's just to say that, you know, these fractures in the elderly are linked to an earlier mortality. So we must, in an earlier age in life, start looking at things that can prevent that, like increasing your calcium in your diet. Now, we did talk about calcium last week, so it's a good micronutrient to kind of go back on. So as we age as well, guys, our muscles will lose a little bit of strength, endurance, and flexibility, and that will affect your coordination, your stability, your balance. So again, if you've got weakened bones and then your balance is a bit off, you're more susceptible to fractures or falls and fractures. So just a kind of, it's, again, I don't mean to be like the Grim Reaper here, kind of sound like I am, but it's just to be aware of these things, you know, that there's stuff that can be done now to prevent these things down the line. So again, we'll talk about physical activity shortly, but that's definitely something that would help. We'll talk about a diet shortly, and that's another thing that would help. Staying mentally active as well. Different things, different memory games, reading, just keeping stimulated mentally. Sorry, that's my last point there, that our cognitive function may start to decline as we age as well. So let's look at sarcopenia. This is a big one. Again, sarcopenia is never, it wasn't something I learned until I was, you know, within the nutrition profession. And it's definitely something that people that I know that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s have never heard of. And I suppose when we get older, we just expect to get a little bit frailer, a little bit thinner maybe. But what sarcopenia is, it's muscle decline as we age, and it's a loss of muscle strength and quality. Now, this actually starts happening from your 30s onwards. So it's not a quote unquote kind of an elderly person condition or anything. This happens very early on in life. We just don't seem to notice it. It's not to such an extent that it's, you know, that was something that we feel we have to address immediately, because it's quite gradual. So in around your 30s, you're going to start losing muscle mass and muscle function. And it's called age-related sarcopenia, but physically inactive people, so people who are quite sedentary during the day, who have low steps, don't exercise, spend a lot of time in couch or going from the you know, the laptop chair to the couch in the sitting room. But you can actually lose from about 3 to 5% of your muscle mass each decade after the age of 30. So if you think about that, from your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you could lose up to 20% of your muscle mass when you hit your late 60s, early 70s. Now that is actually huge. Okay. So, and even if you're active, so a very active, very fit person, you will still have some degree of muscle loss as well. But I suppose it will be more detrimental if you're very inactive and if you have an inadequate diet as well. So the risks when this condition develops, that we could see around is type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, frailty and disability. Of course, when you get that a bit older, if you have extensive muscle loss, you'll get quite frail. Falls and fractures, like we just discussed. Loss of physical independence is a big one. That's a huge one. If you can't physically look after yourself because you have that to that degree of muscle wastage, cognitive decline, lower quality of life, a big one, and all cause mortality. So again, I'm a bit like the Grim Reaper here, but you know, sarcopenia has been linked to a shorter lifespan essentially. So if we look here, just to show you what this looks like, you know, we can, you know, do the usual guys in their 20s versus guys in their 60s. And anybody might think, well, that's just part of aging, you know, that's just something that happens. It's not something you can stop. And if you see here, the issue is that you may stay the same size. So you might think you might be in your 50s now and be like, well, I've got the same size arms as I was in my 20s, or I've got the same size legs as I had in my 20s. But the issue here is that we're replacing the muscle. So the muscle reduces, and then we have our fat cells take over if our diet allows it. So you may be the same size, but you haven't got the same quality of tissue there. You've muscle rather than fat, or excuse me, you've fat rather than muscle. So essentially, just to let you know a little more about the aging of it, it happens faster in around our 70s, but it can speed up quite fast in our 60s as well, or as late as our 80s. So it's just, but it will start happening generally in around your 30s, and then it's on per decade after that. If you're inactive, a 3 to 5% reduction. So I want to talk more about how do we prevent this? What in our day-to-day lives can we do to ensure that we're just reducing our risk of this muscle wastage, and then all of the illnesses and issues that can come as a consequence of it. The big one is adequate protein. Now, we did in week 1. So if you want to learn, kind of go back where I discussed a lot more about protein, you can go back to week 1 and have a look at that. But protein's a big one, because as I discussed, protein helps us repair muscle. It helps us increase muscle protein synthesis, so MPS, and that's the building of our muscle cells, you know, and ensuring that they're repairing and even growing. So we need to ensure we have adequate protein in our diet. But that's not the only thing. We need resistance exercise, so strength exercise. We actually need to stimulate our muscles. When we stimulate our muscles, we break them down a little bit. When we've got adequate protein in, then that helps build them back up again, makes them stronger. And then our overall energy intake. So just ensuring that you're getting enough energy throughout the day. You know, as people get older and you get into your elder years, you can have your appetite can be a bit suppressed. So then you haven't got enough calories in, and that can accelerate muscle wastage then. So meeting your requirements across these 3 areas, the vast majority of the time, will reduce your risk of sarcopenia. So getting these good habits in now, or as soon as you can, no matter what age you are, you can build these habits straight off. It doesn't, again, there's no age limit on this. If you're listening to me now and you're 65 and you're thinking, well, it's probably too late for me, it's never too late. It's never too late to bring in these, because these will reduce any further risk of you know, accelerating sarcopenia or halt it where it is. So if we're looking at the protein, how much we actually need, it's 1.2 kilogram of protein per day. Excuse me, 1.2 grams per kilogram of protein per day. There is a whopper of a typo on that. It's not 1.2 kilos of protein, guys. Sorry. It's 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So it will be about 84 grams for the average 70 kilo person. So if everybody here can just take their weight in kilograms, whatever that is, and just multiply it by 1.2, that's in around what you should be looking for. Okay, you can get all your protein you need through a well-planned diet. I'm going to show you how to do it now in a second. But a really easy way to get in with just ensuring you have lots of protein in throughout the day is, you know, making sure you have with your breakfast that you're having, you know, a palm size with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So in the morning, maybe it's a couple of eggs, or maybe it's porridge with some milk or yogurt and granola, or whatever that is, just with that protein source there. So remember in week 1, we talked about balancing our meals and making sure that we were hitting all of our food groups in our meals. Well, this is why we're placing such emphasis on protein, to make sure you're getting enough. So if you have about a palm size of a chicken breast or a turkey steak or a lean steak or white fish or oily fish or whatever kind of animal-based product you're going for, it's in or around 20 grams of protein. Now, that's a very, very rough guide, okay? And again, I don't want anybody come back to me saying, Laura, I weighed out that, it's not 20 grams of protein. it's a rough guide to make it easy for you to kind of ascertain whether or not your meal has a sufficient amount of protein. So we won't argue over, you know, a few grams, but it's a good guide to go by. If you're making maybe a chicken curry for 4 people and you're putting in 1 chicken breast, that wouldn't really be adequate protein now, would it? So it's just to kind of get that idea. If you're to put both your hands together like that, well, it would be around 40 grams. So that would be, you know, if a chicken breast went across your hand, it'd be a fairly big chicken breast, about 40 grams, a good lump of a lean steak there, about 40 grams. If you're plant-based and you're going with tofu or tempeh or, you know, chickpeas, kidney beans, lentils, anything that's quite high protein, and make sure that if you are plant-based that you're really focusing on making sure you have enough in each meal. You can absolutely get high protein in. If you're vegan or vegetarian, I absolutely believe that. It's never an argument I have, because I've tried both diets myself just to see how difficult it was to get in enough protein. And it's more than manageable. Just need to be well prepared. A handy tin of tuna there as well, folks. We'll leave the tins of tuna to 2 or 3 times a week, no more than that, just to ensure that we are eating a balanced diet. And a lot of people can get hung up on eating tins of tuna breakfast, lunch and dinner for ease of protein, but we'll just stick 2 or 3 tins of tuna a week is absolutely fine. It's more than enough. Now, in around that, to help bump up the protein during the day, we can go with some snacks as well. So some nice high protein yogurts there, tuna pots, any dairy products, cheese, milk, yogurt, eggs, of course, nuts and seeds, some quark, high protein quark there. Now, if you're really struggling to hit protein intakes, like you're really, maybe you're a bigger person and or you just really don't have a taste for anything, or maybe you're vegetarian and you just feel like you're not eating enough plant-based foods, you can also supplement with a protein shake, protein powder. Whey and casein, which are milk proteins, will be the ones I'd recommend because they're highly bioavailable. But you can go with a plant-based protein shake as well if you are vegan, to help get your numbers up there. But I'd focus on, we always take a food first approach with these things because food has more nutrients, it's more bioavailable in your body. But if you're stuck, you can always supplement with some protein powder to get an extra 20 or 30 grams in a day. So if we put that all together, then what we're looking at is we have our protein intake that we're looking for breakfast, lunch and dinner, a good 20 to 30 grams. And then we have our own snacks in between that. But we also need to make sure that we're doing some resistance exercise. And what I mean by resistance exercise is strength training. Now, we don't mean for anybody to go in and start trying to squat or deadlift if you've never done anything like that before, or feel like you have to join a gym. You absolutely don't have to join a gym to do some strength exercises. You need to aim for about 3 strength workouts and 150 minutes of aerobic exercise a week. Now that sounds a lot. Let me just break that down for you. This is what the recommendation is for all adults, by the way, but the resistance training, the strength training is really specific for reducing your risk of sarcopenia. So if we look at that, that's about 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per day. And what I mean by moderate exercise, I mean just a walk, a good brisk walk, so much that you're breathing hard, but you're still able to talk. Like, that's moderate intensity. All right. If you're exercising and you're not able to talk at all, that means it's quite high intensity. It's a really easy way to kind of figure out low, moderate, and high. If you're at low intensity, you can talk, you can sing, you can do whatever you want. It means that your heart's beating at a regular pace. It's not really under any duress or stress or anything. But a moderate intensity would be if you can just, manage a conversation, but if I asked you to sing a song for me, you'd struggle. That's how you'd be able to tell. So the recommendation is 30 minutes of moderate exercise per day, and 3 strength sessions per week, about 30 minutes. That's all. So you could actually, if you wanted to do high intensity work, it's only 70 minutes of high intensity or 75 minutes of high intensity work a week, which is, you could do 2 half hours and 15 minutes. So you could do 3 times a week of high intensity. Now that needs to be quite high intensity to cover that off. But if you want to start off easy, it's 30 minutes of moderate intensity per day for 5 days of the week, which is not that, it's not that bad. It's what we recommended anyway. So start small, choose an exercise, a friend involved, whatever it is, Resistance exercise does not have to be, like I said, in the gym with all the lads with their sleeveless tops and their, you know, big muscles or anything like that. You don't need to go into a gym. There's lots of different classes, I'm sure, around your local community, like yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates. They're all resistance based. Of course, you could go lifting weights. You can go in, maybe work with your gym instructor to do a light plan that I would recommend it to ensure you're doing it right. You can do stuff at home. If you were to buy some resistance bands, between that and body weight workout, you could follow a lot of good YouTube workout videos. So if you type in, you know, at home strength workout into YouTube, you could do one for 15 minutes a day. That would be more than meet your need. If you were to do 15 minutes every morning, you know, 5 or 6 times a week, it'd be absolutely perfect. Bring in some resistance bands, which are just like big elastics, basically. It's anything that puts a little bit of tension on your muscles. That's the goal. Now, some actually exercises count as both. So if you are into circuit training or aerobics or running, that is muscle strengthening exercise as well. So that will cover that off. Or you can do some unintentional resistance exercise. So gardening is a big one. If you're into your gardening, you know, just include loads of digging in your gardening and you'll get lots of strength training. Any excuse to do strength training would be cleaning out the attic or cleaning out your garage, anything where you're going to be lifting and putting things down, lifting heavy things and putting things down. That's basically all resistance exercise is, or maybe if someone's moving house. Now, I don't know how often that would happen, but it's just kind of get into your head that it's not just about going to a gym. There's lots of different ways to get those muscles under tension and help reduce that risk of sarcopenia. Now, I'm going to mention this supplement here tonight. It's called Creatine Monohydrate. Some of you will have heard of it before. Anybody that's maybe into their gym or into their exercise or anything like that, you may have heard of creatine monohydrate. So it's a naturally occurring compound in our body. We get it from food, we get it from fish, we get it from meat, but we just get it in very small amounts. All right. And this is why some people will supplement with it, because when we supplement with it, we can increase the levels of creatine in our cells. So creatine, in terms of exercise, is used within one of our energy systems. So the phosphocreatine system. Now, this system is used every time you do a quick burst of any kind of action. So if you were to jump in the air, if you were to take a little sprint, if you were to, I don't know, go running after the dog really quickly, or catch your child when they're falling off the end of the couch, that uses the phosphocreatine system. When we supplement with it and we increase the amount of creatine in our cells, we can turn over that system quicker. And this is why athletes actually use creatine. And it's completely safe. It's completely effective. I recommend it with a lot of athletes I actually work with. It's very well researched and it's very, very effective. Now, the thing is, it's not just recommended for athletes anymore. There's a lot of exciting research in creatine, and it's been shown that it's actually may positively affect other areas of our health. Okay. It's this growing collection of evidence that does support this idea that creatine can actually, I suppose, help improve our health as we age, because it's been linked to lowering cholesterol now, lowering triglyceride levels, reducing fat in the liver. It's an antioxidant. It's been shown to have some really exciting results around cancer studies, but that's obviously very far down the line. Increasing your muscle mass, so it's actually obviously very good for sarcopenia as well. Minimizing bone loss. So remember what we said at the start, as we age, our bones get less dense and smaller. It's also been linked to very good things with cognitive health as well. So reducing cognitive decline, which I spoke about, happens as we age as well. So it is one of the most well-researched supplements in the market. It's been researched since the early 70s. There's no ill effects in healthy individuals, and no ill effects found from long-term use as well, as it's been used for the last nearly 50 years. And there's lots of long-term studies in it. So it's something to bear in mind. I have a feeling that it's something that's going to be recommended to everybody in years to come from the direction that it's changing right now. I have my mother taking it. She takes it every morning in her porridge. So it's something to consider if you are just wanting to maybe add something to your diet to help you along. There's a lot of stuff out there that absolutely doesn't work, but creatine is one of those things that actually does. So it's just something to bear in mind if you did want to. It's very hard to get high levels of creatine from food, which is why the supplementation is recommended. So kind of moving on from that idea of exercise now into eating around your exercise. So eating around exercise, see, a lot of people I find will use exercise to lose weight, and therefore they avoid eating anything around it before or after it. And that maybe not be the most, I suppose, the most positive thing to do. Now, as well as that, you may not want to lose weight. Maybe you just exercise because you like exercising, you know, to make sure you're staying fit and healthy. If you don't kind of schedule timings around your exercise at the moment, this could really help you in terms of just improving on what you're doing right now and helping you recover a little bit better. So when we talk about fueling training and exercise, carbs as our fuel, and when we're working at moderate to high intensity, so like that, if you're jogging or if you're doing a spinning class or anything like that, your body's going to use carbohydrates for fuel. When we eat carbs and when we digest them and store them, we store them as glycogen. We store them in our muscles and we store them in our liver. And when we're working out at high intensity, moderate to high intensity, our body's going to use carbohydrates to fuel that workout. Okay, so the idea is, and this is if you don't have any carbohydrates, you're going to not be able to work out at quite as high intensity as you could have if you did have carbs in your body. So the recommendation I make is that kind of on days where you're planning a little bit more exercise, maybe you're planning a 5K, or you're going off on a big hike with your friends, or maybe you're going in to do, you know, you've got a big spin class that night, will be to maybe increase your carbs a little bit throughout the day. So an extra fistful with meals, or just making sure that you do actually have any, maybe some, you wouldn't have carbohydrates day to day, ensuring that you have enough with your meals. We did talk about carbohydrates and we talked about our balanced meals to make sure we had energy that throughout the day and we didn't have highs and lows of blood sugar and such. But definitely if you're planning on, you know, a big run, or you've got the park run on a Saturday morning, having extra carbs the day before may help you, especially if it's a morning run. So just being mindful of having additional carbohydrates to fuel that exercise. And you can include some carb snacks as well. So like, you know, fruit and fueling smoothies. I was calling them fuelies. That's actually a pretty good name, fuelies. Fueling smoothies or wraps, or, you know, granola and yogurt, things like this. Now I do include a little kind of cereal bar there as well. That's for people who are maybe really getting high amounts of carbs in, if they need to top up their carbohydrate stores before they go and do a run or a match, or it depends on what you're actually doing. But these little high carb snacks can help us, and you have these closer to the training session, they can help us do a little bit more. And then after our workouts, this would be a very important one for anybody trying to build muscle. After we've worked out and we've done a really hard exercise session, you know, our muscles are broken down. We're going to have higher levels of inflammation in our body, and we're dehydrated. We've spent lots of energy. We've spent lots of fuel. We do want to make sure we give our bodies what they need to actually to recover, because even if say, and again, I know I'm talking to a mixed crowd here, so I'm trying to balance it out. But if you're someone that's exercising to lose weight, what I often see is that if you keep pushing yourself really, really, really hard, and you don't eat after your training sessions, or you leave large gaps after your training sessions before you eat, your body's under stress. And, you know, especially if you're pushing really hard, if you don't recover adequately, you're going to be prone to injury, and you're also going to be prone to getting a little bit sick, because, you know, when your body's under stress, your immune system's lowered. And then you may end up getting it, just like, you know, like a sore throat or a head cold or a cough or earache or something, but it may stop you from exercising. So if you get injured, if you get sick, you're going to stop exercising. And, you know, if you're exercising to lose weight, then you're kind of, all your motivation might go out the window. So if you can strategically time something after you eat, you're going to help yourself refuel, rehydrate, recover, repair. And ultimately, you're going to be able to get stronger and that bit fitter to go for your next exercise session. So this is why we recommend having a protein and carbohydrate snack after your exercise. All right. So again, we've talked about protein and carbohydrate in week 1. We just spoke about protein there and its importance for preserving muscle mass. But when you can have a snack that has those 2 macronutrients, you're going to see lots of positive reactions. So we're going to maximize training adaptation. So again, just talking to people here who may exercise to lose weight or keep weight off, remember that focusing on just losing weight is what the most ideal thing. I would really focus on what level your fitness is getting to. So, you know, how quick can you walk a 5K, and can you take, you know, can you reduce that time? Can you start doing it faster? Or maybe you're in the gym, and you're, I don't know, you're squatting on the rack and you're doing 20 kg. Can you get that up to 40 kg? If you can time food well around exercise, you're going to maximize training adaptation. So your body's going to get fitter and it's going to get stronger, if it gets the right substrates, so our food, in order to repair itself and make those adaptations. Production of anabolic hormones, so hormones that helps our body build back up again, reducing protein breakdown, and the supply of amino acids for muscle building. So when protein's eaten, breaks down to amino acids, and those amino acids help build back up our muscles. And you know, that will only happen if we have enough protein. So different things that I would recommend to people kind of after you're looking for about maybe 60 to 80 grams of carbs, 15 to 25 grams of protein. But I don't want you to worry about numbers, because this is where we get tied up again. But these are just kind of like handy little snacks you could have after you exercise, just to help with that recovery process. And they're all quite simple foods. Now, some are healthier than others, obviously, but I would say like fruit and a yogurt it's just ideal, or fruit and milk after a workout is absolutely ideal, or beans on toast, something super simple, to make sure you're giving your body that carbohydrate and protein to help you recover and refuel. Now, for anybody who you know, really wants to recover well, you know, I would recommend milk until the cows come home, and there's absolutely no pun intended there. Milk is the ultimate recovery aid. It's something that I would use when I'm working with all of my athletes, my GAA players. I swear I was getting paid by having more of the amount of and I don't care what kind of milk brand it is, as long as it's milk, as long as it's dairy milk. It's the ultimate recovery aid. So if you've got, I know kids in the house that are out for football and hurling and camogie and swimming and soccer and every sport under the sun, get plenty of milk into them. To really, really help with the recovery. For you yourself, for starting out in a big, you know, I don't know, a fitness lifestyle change, you know, a glass of milk after you've come home from your training session or your Pilates, your gym session, or whatever it is, be really, really helpful. So when I'm talking about recovery with my athletes, I talk about the 5 R's of recovery. So after we work out, after we've had a hard session, we want to focus on 5 R's, okay? And that's rehydration, refueling, repair, replenish, and rest. They're the 5 things that your body needs in order to make the training adaptations that you're hoping for. So to get fitter, faster, stronger, whatever it is. And milk covers 4 of those 5 R's, okay? It helps with rehydration. So low-fat milk will actually rehydrate you quicker than water or a sports drink. And this is all proven by science and ultimately proven by the research. So this is why I include it. It helps refuel, so it contains those simple carbs. So it contains lactose, so lactose is broken down and absorbed, and that helps refuel your body. So it works as a refueling aid. Repair, so the proteins within milk, which are casein and whey. So anybody that's listening to me now that has a bag of protein in their house and it says whey protein on it, that's a milk protein. So it's very easy just to go to a cheaper source like a 2 liter jug of milk, then go buy protein powder. But milk contains easily absorbed proteins, and that's proven optimal for muscle repair. And then replenish, our 4th R. So replenish, I mean that you need to make sure you're getting lots of vitamins and minerals back in after exercise, like I said, to help nearly keep your immune system strong and you know, for that antioxidant effect that we talked about before. Even the non-fortified milk has lots of vitamins and minerals, but ultimately if you're going with something like a super milk, and there's an Aldi and Lidl equivalent to this milk as well, it's brilliant because it has added calcium, vitamin D, folic acid, and then vitamins B, D, and E. So it's great for just that another increase on your micronutrients. So that is my recommendation here, is for milk after you exercise to really help recover. So let's move on to our 3rd topic of tonight. I'm just checking the time here, so we've enough time, which is around nutrition. And by no means am I an expert in mental health, but I do understand the areas of your food that can help improve. And I suppose that I would recommend that people focus on, of course, ultimately, you make sure that you're looking after your mental health and speaking to your GP. If you do have any issues or if you have any worries, you please talk to your GP or reach out to someone around you. But I'm just going to discuss different areas in your nutrition that have been shown to help with a positive mood, because what you eat can make a big difference. And research shows that a diet that is rich in foods like fruit and vegetables and seeds, you know, all the things that I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, can really protect and help your mental health. Now, other things like, you know, exercise, quality sleep, stress management, that can really, really help as well. All right. So you need to really focus on, for your mental health, you really need to focus on your nutritional health and your physical health as well. And, you know, they all work together that way. They're all interlinked. They all bounce off each other. You never really think of these things in isolation. I showed you a slide on week 1, remember, where we talked about all the different aspects of our health: environmental health, emotional health, and mental health, nutritional health, physical health. So they all work together. They're all in unison. Usually when one goes out of whack, nearly has this domino effect. So, you know, if your nutrition kind of goes out the window for a few days, then you've less motivation to exercise, and then you're outside less, and then your stress levels kind of go up, and then your head's not feeling great, then you're feeling maybe demotivated or annoyed, and you know, it really has a domino effect on each other. So by supporting your nutrition, your physical health, that in turn helps then support your mental health as well. So small changes and small habits make huge positive effects on all these areas as well. So what we're going to focus on that have been proven to help you know, improve mood and mental health. And the first one we're going to talk about is complex carbohydrates. And again, this is what we talked about in week 1 for keeping our energy stable throughout the day, for increased fiber intake in our diets, and the foods we just talked about there that kind of help fuel your exercise as well. So I know nutrition sometimes feels like there's so much to know, and how am I meant to know what to eat, and how am I meant to know how to eat for exercise? How do I know what to eat for energy? How do I know what to eat for positive mental health? Well, the really good thing is that nearly it's all the same foods that do it. And this is why we keep repeating ourselves and telling you what foods help with this. There's no magical foods. It's generally just the 6 food groups I showed you in week 1 and the 6 food groups that are going to tick off literally so many boxes of so many different areas of your health. So we talk about complex carbohydrates. We talk about porridge. We've talked about porridge before for fiber, for energy, whole grain rice, sweet potato, quinoa, spuds, lentils, beans, lots of pasta, lots of all the different complex carbohydrates we talked about in week 1. When we talk about them in relation to your mental health, it's because carbohydrates and complex carbohydrate rich foods, they trigger the release of serotonin. Now, serotonin is that lovely, you know, it's the happy hormone, you know, the happy chemical that makes us feel good about ourselves, makes us feel well. And we want to make sure that we're producing enough serotonin in our brain in order to keep our mood stable. So when we've got low levels, you know, we can get anxiety, poor sleep, increased stress, low motivation. So we need those carb-rich foods. So I don't know if anybody here has ever gone on a low carb diet. I did a few times when I was very young, and you're a miserable sod. It's probably related to this lack of release of serotonin. You know, carbs do make us happy, but we need to make sure we have the right ones for our health, or the most healthful ones in our diets. Reducing highly processed simple carbohydrates. So this is kind of the other side of it. Okay. Excuse me. Remember, I talked about all carbs are not created equal. We do not just toss every carbohydrate under the carbohydrate umbrella, because we have our healthy, healthful carbohydrates on this side, but then we have the ones that don't really help us all that much. Okay. And it's the ones that we love eating, you know, like sweets, chocolate, very highly processed white flour foods. I've nothing against white bread. You know, white bread's absolutely fine in your diet. It's just that if we're having white bread for every meal or for every snack throughout the entire day, it doesn't offer a huge amount in nutrient value. So that's why it gets a bit of a bad rep, but it's fine. You know, if you're having a couple of slices of toast for your breakfast with some eggs and avocado and, tomato, that's absolutely grand. But the issue is when we focus, white bread's very easily eaten and eaten in bulk, and doesn't offer a huge amount in terms of nutrients. It has some basics there, but we tend to overeat on it. And it'll give you a quick burst. It'll be a quick release of serotonin, but it won't last that long. Okay. And these highs and lows, these blood sugar highs and lows we spoke about before, that will lead to both energy dips, but also mood dips. All right. And then you're looking for that quick burst over and over again. And then you're eating excess calories, and then you're putting on weight, and then it's just this vicious cycle. So it was another reason to reduce highly processed simple carbs. Increasing your protein. So here we go. Here's protein again, coming to the rescue. So we talked about a portion of every meal time has to be a portion. So again, go back to week 1. We talked about keeping protein high at breakfast. That's one that we always seem to miss. So 2 to 3 eggs at breakfast, high protein yogurt and granola and seeds, something like that. Or if you're having porridge, make sure you have adequate milk in it, or you're having an additional protein source alongside it. So protein, it has the amino acids tryptophan. So remember I talked about amino acids. So one of the amino acids within protein is tryptophan, and that's the building block for serotonin production, which is our happy chemical. So if we don't have enough protein in our diet, we don't have enough tryptophan, and then we can't produce enough serotonin. So you see the way everything is linked in your body. And keeping enough protein in your diet as well, it can keep your blood sugar stable. It can stave off, those highs and lows of energy. And it can make sure that you're actually full with your meals as well. So hydrate, a big one. So a lot of people, and we talked about hydration in week 1 as well, prolonged and persistent dehydration. It has ill effects all over our body, but in terms of our mood, it can leave you a kind of with a fuzzy head, poor memory, tiredness. If you ever think, if anybody here has had a hangover, that is hugely to do with dehydration. So just think about how kind of miserable you were, tired you were, or just lack of motivation, and that can all come back to how hydrated you were and what dehydration led to. So don't depend on caffeine throughout the day for energy or anything like that, and make sure that we talked about kind of the tips around hydrating. So as soon as you wake up, you start drinking water, hydrate before you caffeinate, and then regularly keep a bottle beside you like this throughout the day, and just keep sipping away. Don't skip meals is a big one as well. We want to keep energy levels steady. A big thing around our mood is highs and lows throughout the day. So making sure you have enough energy, that you're not fatigued, and increasing intake of fruit and dairy, whole grains, and nuts and seeds between meals. So healthy snacks. So even what we talk about, like beans on toast as a snack, or oat cakes and nut butter, or a banana wrap with some peanut butter, or some cheese on crackers and some seeds, something that's going to keep you energized and meet some nutrient requirements as well. And that leads on to talking specific micronutrients. So ensuring you have enough B vitamins and magnesium in your diet is very important. This is what the studies have shown is most essential for keeping our mood balanced. And I suppose being able to handle stress is a big one. And they're the two micronutrients linked to that. So having enough B complex vitamins and enough magnesium in your diet is essential. And vitamin D gets its own little area here because of how important it is. It's something I've spoken about again over the last 2 weeks of how important vitamin D is in our diets. We generally can't get enough at this time of year from the sunshine, so I do recommend that we supplement with it. The kind of loose rule is that you supplement from Halloween up to Paddy's Day. I do recommend getting your levels checked as well, but it's something just to notice. Like a lot of people would suffer with a low mood throughout the winter months. Because maybe we have some post-Christmas blues or the January blues, or maybe we're just a little bit miserable because the weather is worse and there's not enough sunshine and everyone's stuck inside from 4 o'clock onwards. But a big thing can be linked to low vitamin D levels. All right, and that has been shown and proven that to be linked with a low mood. In some cases it can be linked with depression. So definitely get your levels checked and start supplementing if you don't already do. And that could be a huge turning point for you as a person if you haven't done it already, and you do notice this low mood around this time of year. So moving on to the last topic of tonight, which is the gut microbiome, which is a bit of a mouthful. But if this isn't a topic that you're familiar with right now, brilliant, because it's definitely something that everybody should know. So microbiome is basically your digestive system, and it's the microorganism that live in your digestive tract, in your intestinal tract. All right. It's mainly bacteria, and they're involved in functions that are critical to your health and to your well-being. They play a key role in digesting food. They help with absorbing nutrients, synthesizing nutrients, and they can be linked to everything from your body weight, your immune system, your brain function, your mood. So we're back to our mood now again. I'm to be very clear. There's no real one defining healthy gut or ideal healthy gut. Okay, everybody's gut is very, very different. All right, and it's very important for your health that you make sure you have a healthy gut. And what I mean by that is that I know there's a lot of probiotics sold out there that have different specific strains of bacteria, but everybody's bacteria is very different, and I suppose to even recommend a specific type wouldn't be accurate. So we'll talk about that in a second. I just want to talk about some different terminology around the gut microbiome. So dysbiosis is when the gut microbiome becomes imbalanced. All right, and that can happen from lots of things. So if you had antibiotics, I'm sure you've heard about that. Like if you have antibiotics, you can kind of have that imbalance. A lot of stress, illness, if you're overweight, and poor quality diet, and diet really, and obviously this won't be a surprise to you, but diet is probably the most important modifiable factor affecting the quantity, quality, and type of bacteria that lives in our gut. Our diet is a big thing that we can really help influence a positive gut microbiome. Prebiotics. So we're talking about prebiotics and probiotics in a second, but just prebiotics are plant fibers. All right. And basically the bacteria in our gut that feeds on these prebiotics, and it's part of fiber. All right. So remember we talked about fiber in week 1 as well. So again, we're linking all these topics back in. This is why fiber is so important in your diet as well, because the beneficial bacteria in your gut, they eat this fiber. So when we look to prebiotics, I'll show you some examples now shortly, but it's mainly fruit and veg, guys. Fruit and veg back in to save the day again, this time in the area of our gut. And so we don't digest these types of fiber that's within these plant foods, and they pass through our digestive system. They become food for the bacteria, for the microbes. And I suppose we don't focus on them enough to help with our gut bacteria, because generally people will go straight to probiotics. And they usually go out and buy, I'm talking about probiotics that you get over the counter, and they contain live organisms. So they actually contain species and strains of specific bacteria, and they add them straight to the healthy microbes of our gut. So you can get probiotics in your food as well, which I'll speak about, and they're the ones I'd like you to focus on. So I suppose what I'm saying here now is that I want you to focus on food rather than over the counter for this. So here is our probiotics here. So this is introducing actual live bacteria into your gut, and we find them in things like yogurt. All right. So what else does yogurt have? Yogurt has lots of protein in it. So, you'll be covering off 2 things now if you increase the yogurt in your diet. Sauerkraut, kefir is another one. Kefir has become quite popular. I know you can get little bottles of it now in Super Value and Tesco. You can look for kefir on the outside of it. So a few mouthfuls of that a day. Anything that's fermented then after that's like pickles, kimchi, tempeh, maybe not as popular in the Irish diet, but definitely in other areas of the world, very, very popular. Sourdough bread as well has some probiotics in it because it's fermented, and you can go the supplement route as well, but I would recommend going the food route always with these things first. And then we have our prebiotics over here. So these are foods that feed that good gut bacteria, that feed those good gut microbes. And they're things simply enough: banana, onion, garlic, porridge and honey and asparagus, all of these things. But really a diet rich in fruit and veg will really feed your good gut bacteria. So 2 things to kind of, this is your homework now, to try and introduce some of these foods into your diet if you don't already do it, to increase the amount you already have. Looking at gut and our mental health. So this is where we really tie in the 2 topics. All right, we've just spoken about eating for positive mental health, and then eating for good gut health. And now we're going to look at how they actually interact with each other, because the brain does have a direct effect in your stomach and your intestines. I want to just think about this. Think of the last time that you were nervous or excited about something, and you would have felt maybe butterflies in your stomach or a knot in your stomach, or God, maybe even felt a little bit queasy or something. So just think of that link. How did something that you were thinking in your head have an effect on your stomach? Okay. And it's something that you may have never even thought about before. It just happens. But your brain does have a direct effect on your stomach and your intestines. And, or even another one to think of is maybe you can have something cooking in the kitchen and you're hungry, and, you know, maybe you'll start, your mouth will start watering a little bit. You know, that just shows that relation as well. So the connection goes both ways to think about it. When we think about something, it can have an effect on our gut, but when something happens in our gut, it can also have an effect on our mind. All right. You know, if you have a troubled intestine, that can send, you know, signals to your brain. You know, just as a troubled brain can send signals to our gut, a troubled gut can send signals to our brain. So, you know, if you've got I suppose if you're intestinal stress or a stomach issue, that can cause anxiety, it can cause stress, in some extreme cases, it can cause depression. And that's because these two systems, our gastrointestinal system and our brain, are very intimately connected. Okay. And when we make sure that we have a healthy gut, we make sure then that we have it's not affecting our mood or affecting our anxiety. So this is called the ENS, the enteric nervous system, this little brain in our gut. This is what we call it. So ensuring that we have good gut bacteria, or if in some cases when we have the absence of bad ones, that can make us more resilient to depressive states after stressors or trauma. All right, this is what the research has shown. So making sure that we have our gut health is strong and that we're warding off any, I suppose, bad strains of bacteria or anything like that. We spoke about serotonin before when I talked about food for mood. So we know that we have enough protein to ensure that we have tryptophan, which is a building block for serotonin. We know that we want complex carbohydrates to ensure the release of serotonin. Well, 90% of your serotonin is actually made in your digestive tract. Okay. Anybody who has any experience with antidepressants, they generally work by increasing serotonin. And essentially to ensure that we have this positive production and adequate production of serotonin, we do need to make sure that our digestive systems are healthy. So the gut microbiome, it can cause changes in how our brains react. So if you take care of your gut bacteria, you can improve your quality of life, better mental health, and a sharper brain. All right. So how do we do that? How do we maintain a healthy gut? Well, we want to look at foods that are high fiber. All right. So those prebiotic foods, garlic and onions, fermented foods, all the ones we just showed you on the slide back there. And we talked about prebiotics and probiotics. Lowering your stress levels is a big one. All right. Stress can really negatively affect good health. If you've noticed that maybe when you're stressed, you eat more, you eat less, that shows you how those two things are linked. If stress causes you to feel ill, again, you can see how those two things are linked. So, and we're not just talking about psychological stress, you know, we've got a kind of other stress there as well. Sleep deprivation is a big one. Exposure to extreme heat, cold, or noise, they can all affect our stress levels. So we do recommend getting enough sleep. And I've talked to you about sleep and lots of other, linked to lots of other areas, but definitely with our maintaining a healthy gut, sleep is a big impact on that as well. Staying hydrated. So just another reason to stay hydrated as well. So those four things: look to your foods. So the foods that we mentioned, both prebiotic and probiotic, looking at after your stress levels. And we will talk about stress next week as well, and just how to kind of manage stress a little bit, getting enough sleep and staying hydrated. These are all things that can really, really help with your improving gut health and maintaining gut health as well. Especially with water as well, because as I mentioned there, being hydrated has shown to have a good effect on the mucosal lining of your intestines and the balance of good bacteria. So Again, it's another reason to ensure that you're hydrating throughout the day. The last topic, a bit unrelated to, well, I suppose it is related. It's out on its own here because I haven't mentioned it to date. But guys, just a little bit about alcohol. I know January is probably a year or a time of year where we maybe drink a little bit less, but maybe restrictions lifting out, that'll go out the window. But definitely since lockdown, there's been a higher report of higher consumption of alcohol at home. Just want to highlight, I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't highlight the ill health effects of alcohol. And I know we've got a very kind of cavalier attitude towards drink in Ireland, especially, but it's just to remind you of the damage that alcohol does. And listen, I love a pint of Guinness like the next person. I'm not saying that you can't ever have a drink or anything like that, but it's just, if you're in a habit now of having maybe 3 or 4 drinks every evening at home or 4 to 5 times a week, you will increase your risk of damage to your heart health. And heart health, or cardio death, is the highest rate of death in the world. So and especially among women. So just be aware there's a higher damage to heart health. You get things like obviously low mental health, low mood, depression, reduced energy, vitamin and mineral depletion, prolonged dehydration. But just alcohol really affects every area. Like I've spoken about all these areas and how to improve them with food. And when you drink in excess, it really affects all these areas for the negative. So, it affects sleeps, it affects your immune system, it can cause weight gain, it can interrupt weight loss. So just be aware, try and stick within safe limits. Try not to binge drink. And I know, again, that's a big problem here in Ireland, but just kind of cutting back on drink would be your best bet forward, and reducing it to definitely not to every night. A glass of wine 1 or 2 nights a week, no issue there at all. Or enjoying a couple of drinks down the pub, but it's really into an issue where it's causing negative effects in other parts of your life, and it really does damage nearly all areas of our health. So just to finish off on that happy topic, just a recap on what we talked about tonight, guys. We looked at what happens when we age. We looked at sarcopenia and how to counteract it, fueling and recovering around our exercise, eating for positive mental health and a positive gut health, and how the two are linked as well. So if anybody has any questions, please pop them in. I'm delighted I only went over by 4 minutes because there was such an amount to cover in that session. I'm delighted I managed to get it in. Please pop any questions into the chat box, guys. I'll happily go through them there. Next week, we're going to look at a little bit around stress, a little bit around sleep, and we're going to look at building healthy habits. And ultimately, how do we take all the stuff we've covered in the last 3 weeks and actually start doing them day to day? How do you change your lifestyle? How do you make sure you're eating all the foods that, Laura's recommended? Or how do you know that how you're going to get all of your exercise in during the week, or get better sleeping habits? There's a huge amount there that, I've recommended, and how do you just start building it up bit by bit. So that's something that we're going to cover off next week, how to build healthy habits. I don't see too many questions coming in, guys, but that's okay. Just a few thank yous. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Orna and Marianne and Miriam and everyone there. And again, if anybody has any questions, pop them through. But that was a lot to take in, guys. Those topics are always a lot to cover. So thank you for sticking with me. And I really hope you took stuff from it. And remember, you can just start making small changes from literally tomorrow onwards. Maybe it's just an additional high protein yogurt, or maybe you're going to do some strength training this week. Whatever it is, just best of luck.
Laura, thanks a million for that. Really, really good. Fascinating stuff. Really important stuff there as well. So thanks a million.